Bada bing,
Hey
bada
there.
boom. Hey, hey, hey.
What's going on,
Another,
everybody?
what's going on? Another Monday, another Mindset of Fitness episode. A pretty special one today, though, Ryan.
Yes,
Pretty big one today.
yes, it is. And on a bloody night in the crypto market. So I hope everybody is ready to have a great discussion about overall health and wellness, nutritional supplements, and everything good in the world.
Yeah, lots of blood in the streets. Um, your financial health is nothing without your physical health, though. So we
Mm.
are going to be talking a lot of
Hmm.
physical health and wellness. I know your financial health and wellness can impact a lot of different areas. So maybe just take a step back from that and join us while we talk about some of the physical aspects that are going to keep you kicking and really enjoying that financial wealth as you move forward in your life. As it pertains to Hex, we always like to say, try to enjoy those Cuatro Cinco stakes 15 years down the road.
Yep.
All right. What the heck? What is going on this week? We've got a extremely special guest coming on. If you've been around in the Hex community, you have probably seen her already or seen a few mentions of her.
Hmm.
She was on with RG back in the day. I think that was back in November now. And she is coming to offer a great, extremely valuable perspective, I think, that's in line with a lot of the stuff we talk about when it comes to health and wellness on this channel. That is Dr. Nicole Srednicki. So we're going to bring her up right here, right now. Hey,
Hi.
hey, Nicole, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Of course, of course. We are extremely excited and honored to have you here. I think, yeah, it's going to be a big value add for everybody. Lots,
Thank you.
lots
Likewise.
to learn and take away. Um, where should we start? Let's for those who didn't catch your episode with the captain, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Let's just quickly recap some of your credentials or your I guess your background. Let's get to know you a
Yeah.
little bit in these first couple of minutes before we dive in to some content or some topics.
Sure. So I am the founder and owner of Ultra Healthy Human, and I specialize in high performance health for high performance people. So we're using the latest cutting edge technologies and personalized care to really focus on slowing the aging process. So this is, it's very different from going in for your annual physical where they're just looking for disease that's already there. We're really doing things to prevent or slow aging. The reason that I went into this side of medicine was when I was in school. I was like really excited. I'm going to make a change in the world, make a difference, and I learned a lot of insurance-based care. So how to get as many patients in and out as fast as possible, write them prescriptions, and then of course defensive medicine. So when I graduated, I really didn't feel equipped to provide, what my mission was. And so I sought out a board called the American Academy of Anti-Aging and Regenerative Medicine, and I did a fellowship, became board certified, and then I also did another fellowship in natural medicine, and then I started my practice so that I could bring both sides of medicine to the healthcare world and practice medicine the way I think it should be practiced. So I've had my practice for almost 8 years now, and it's very results driven because I really work with patients to use natural medicine when we can, or different things to really help empower them to be able to make their own healthcare decisions, and we are results driven. So it's really exciting and rewarding. And so thank you for letting me come and share my message. I feel like I've already talked a lot. So now you
No,
know.
I am here to listen and yeah, absorb as much as I can.
Yeah.
That's Yeah, sounds like a very, very cool combination. So med school, followed by fellowship in anti-aging regenerative medicine, followed by another fellowship focusing on natural medicine, bringing what sounds like a really, really synergistic approach to the human body.
Yes.
And one of the things that you said there that lines up with one of our consistent talking points is kind of the reactionary nature of the current system. Whereas automatically you felt, what the heck? It sounded like you felt like, well, I'm ill-equipped here. I don't want to be reactionary. I want to get ahead of this ball, ahead of this thing that is happening to a huge percentage of every developed country nowadays. And yeah, that's, I think, one of the things that has led us to you, and maybe you to us. So you're based out of Scottsdale. That's where our very own captain, I think, has visited, and he might be visiting again soon.
Yes, Roy.
Roy, yes, Captain RG3, as we, I think, belovedly refer to him as here. Let's talk a little. This ultra healthy human, is that your practice that you're referring to when you say you've been around for 8 years practicing? Is that ultra healthy human itself?
Yes.
And that's got a brick and mortar office in Scottsdale.
Yep, in Scottsdale. And then I do some traveling. I've kind of built up some patients in other states. And so I do fly out to Miami, New York, to go see patients occasionally. And then I also have built out kind of a retreat setting at my practice where patients can fly in and stay anywhere from like 3 up to, I actually have a 21-day retreat coming up soon where we go through a whole mind-body transformation. So not just the medical side of things, but we really work on the mindfulness aspect with things like acupuncture, meditation, yoga, fun stuff like massage and aesthetics. And I have an awesome chef. And so we kind of deal with health from across the spectrum.
Yeah. 21 days. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've also seen, I think, you working and flying around with some pretty high profile people. The big name that's pretty popular or well known, especially in our community, for some of his like economic fundamentals and tenets is Robert Kiyosaki.
Yes, he has been my patient for several years. He used to be, and he has said I can talk about him.
Okay, cool.
No HIPAA violation here, but he used to be one of my most non-compliant patients.
Okay.
But COVID hit him right at the beginning, and it really took him down. And after that, he realized like I really need to actually like take care of my health. And so after that, he started actually listening to a few things that I had to say. And since then, he has lost a ton of weight. I know he says he's like a size 32 waist now. He goes to the gym. We reversed his diabetes. We have taken him off most of his blood pressure meds. He's happy. He has more energy. So he's kind of he's found a whole new him, and it's really exciting to see, to have seen him go through that process, just like some other patients, and see how good they feel and how they can, take their health into their own hands. Because I know just a few years ago, before he came to see me, he was pretty sick. Like he barely could walk on stage to go do a talk. So it's been really cool working with him and going through the process. So yeah, he's one of my star patients, along with Roy.
Yeah.
Can't take the spotlight off of RG there.
But Roy has done wonderful as well. I mean, I'm sure you guys have seen his improvements, and we've not just like physically like losing weight, but even in his numbers, when we look at his labs, how much healthier he's getting inside.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed it. I'm sure most of people involved in Hex have noticed it from him posting just over the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 months. I'm not sure how long he's been with you, but it is extremely noticeable, I'd say. He's been at a few live meetups where in person, it's a huge difference, just aesthetically and visually, and backed up with some of the lab stuff that you're talking about. That's awesome. Same with Robert. I saw like, I think, a side by side that he posted where it was like a major change just in the visual. So I imagine there's lots of really, really good things that occurred underlying as well.
Yeah. And the way I kind of work is we do very comprehensive lab workup. So when, the patient first comes in, we're looking at like a plethora of, everything from inflammatory markers to like all the hormone cascades, heavy metals, vitamins, of course, all the traditional labs like liver, kidney function, diabetes markers. And then one of the first things that I do with my patients is a 21-day detox, in which, you eliminate stuff from your diet, but you're basically cleaning up your system. So we end up getting filled with inflammation and toxins and excess sugar, and that starts to create symptoms and then progresses to disease processes. And so we really work to kind of like reset the system. So if you think of like changing the oil in your car, this is kind of like changing the oil in our body. You can go on and kind of ignore it for a while, but if you're not doing anything, then eventually it's going to catch up to you. So this is also, my message for young people or people that don't have any symptoms. We should be taking care of ourselves now so that we don't have to try to reverse it down the road. So detoxes, I'm a big advocate of detoxes, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, just proactive as opposed to reactive. I think that's going to be a recurring fundamental from you, and it already has been for us.
Nicole, I have a question for you real quick. Robert Kiyosaki, I don't know his exact age, but I want to ask you what the typical, just because I'm curious, what the typical age range of people that you see typically coming in for that kind of work, if you will. Is it typically on the older side, like 40 to 60, or do you ever see younger people come in? What's that typically look like for you?
I'm actually kind of across the board. I actually have, I do have like a few younger, even like teenagers, but really I would say the majority of my patients are like 30s to 70s. So I really do see a pretty broad range. Robert is 75. He's, he does all of the anti-aging that he can do. I think it shows. But then I have people, in their 30s that just come in for IV vitamins. We're looking at their hormones. We're looking at their cortisol or their stress levels and making sure that we're optimizing it now so that they can sustain down the road.
Yeah, I'm sure you're seeing people come in for reactionary based reasons. You're like, dude, what the heck? Like, where were you 10 years ago? Hoping or wishing, right, that they would come in earlier. So I figured it was probably around the 30 to 60-year-old. And it's cool to even see even older people come in because things still can be great at that age range. I think people really have the misconception that when you pass 30 or 40, that it's just a shit show. You know what I mean? It just goes down the drain when, from like at least a guy's perspective, we're not even really from a muscle standpoint fully matured into our mid to late 40s. So yeah, that's really cool to see that you have a lot of varying age ranges across the board there.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to take care of, kind of look into, where you are in that stage of life and how can we optimize your health right now. I think, unfortunately, I'm seeing men younger and younger needing hormone therapy, or at least cleaning up their bodies so that they don't need hormone therapy, just because our environment we have toxins that we're breathing, we're eating, we're putting stuff on our body. So I have men, in their late 30s, early 40s that initially come to me and they have low testosterone levels. So it's good that they are, taking action. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
When these people are coming into you and you start that detox, is there a certain metric you're looking at that might be most troublesome that you want to get down right off the hop, or is that like there's a whole bunch that you're like, holy smokes, there's 20 things that I want to decrease, or are there like a few targets that you're really looking at decreasing when people first show up to you?
So that's a great question. So lab-wise, I focus on inflammation, blood sugars, cholesterols, some of the heavy metals, and then even, depending what's their liver doing, what are their kidneys doing. And symptom wise, it's usually we're working on weight loss, mental clarity, less joint pain, sleep, hair, skin, nails, usually, and even for people that are like, well, I feel great, there's nothing wrong with me. Once they go through the process, they're like, now they have a new level of norm. So everybody benefits from one way or another. And just kind of going back to that like car analogy, like you can keep driving your car with dirty oil, but eventually it's going to catch up and start breaking down, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
I had a question
Like
too on that. Sorry, keep going, brother.
I was just gonna say very holistic. Like it's not a one, like there's no single answer there. It's not like, holy smokes, your mercury is high, right? It's going to be very, very independent based on your client or your patient that comes in. And even the people who are symptom free, you're probably going to find some metrics to point to that say, hey, this might be a target. Like if you want to keep going the way you're going, symptom free, feeling good, living well, living fast, like let's look at this and try and keep it in check, or maybe even try to improve it. And then, like you said, there might be a new norm that they're like, holy smokes, this is amazing. So just sounds very holistic. It's not like you're pointing at, well, I'm going to do this detox to try to decrease this. Whereas like lots of times when you hear the word detox, just like in this industry, it's got a bad rap. Like we were just talking with Captain the other day. He used to do this detox where it was I don't know the actual mixture, but it's cayenne pepper and
the maple syrup.
Yeah, whatever the heck that one is, right? And I think that's kind of where everybody lumps these detoxes, or kind of like the category that everyone lumps those into. But your methodology upon like arrival sounds, I don't know, just holistic and unique to the individual, which is I think really, really valuable.
Yeah, I try to, I want it to be something that's sustainable for people. So not just like one of these bad quick fix, like what you're referencing, the maple syrup diet or these juice diets that they aren't sustainable. So what I want to do is try to help people to change eating patterns. Maybe they're going to have less cravings for that sugar or salt by the end of the detox, which very frequently happens. That's part of why I made it 21 days. So there's something called neuroplasticity that kicks in, and that's where your body starts to create new habits. So oftentimes by the end, people are like, I'm craving berries versus chocolate cake because they've gone through that process now and they feel so much better.
Cool. Yeah, very cool. You go ahead.
I have a question kind of the tail end of that, because you have a really good one, exercise. Nicole, what percentage of people you work with do you see typically necessitate weight loss alongside of this, especially with like the 21-day setup that you have them on sometimes? Like, and this is just like a broad question, like how many of the clients you see come in typically have weight loss alongside of this, or is it typically like, not that often? I'm just curious, like what the ratio is that you see when it comes to people coming your way.
So for patients that want to lose weight, is that what you're asking?
Really, I guess more so the quantity of patients that you see come in where you recommend weight loss alongside some of this stuff versus clients you'd say, hey, this is probably not any sort of the causation for what's going on top of like the blood work and stuff like that you're looking at.
I would say it is probably a good number of them, maybe like 75%, if we were to really optimize. So remember, I'm not just looking like, here you're this BMI, but we're really looking at the whole picture. And so for me, underlying with weight is the blood sugars. So getting those in check. So many people are pre-diabetic or already diabetic. And we want to, bringing their weight down is going to bring down those blood sugars. Yeah,
that's a good point. Someone who is not super obese, for example, will still be pre-diabetic, right? So you could probably have even situations like that. Okay, that makes sense. Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I'm looking at your website now. I see you have another doctor. Does he operate with you? Dr. Radha, I'm going to mispronounce this probably. Gopalan. Okay. Does he operate with you guys then?
So he's in occasionally. He'll usually come in more often as kind of like a guest, want to have a retreat, because he's actually full time. He's a heart transplant cardiologist. So extreme Western medicine. However, he is also medically certified in acupuncture. He's certified in yoga. Grew up in Ayurvedic medicine. So he brings so much of like the Eastern spiritual side to medicine. I wish he would come work with me full time, but he's so busy. It's just occasionally.
Got it. Okay. I saw him on here too. I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Man, this wellness retreat looks amazing. I would want to do that.
Yeah,
it's really fun, and to get clients' feedback at the end of it. And I think the most commonly used word is transformational at the end of a retreat, which is it's awesome. And we just we tailor it to the individual. When we have retreats, it's only for like one person or a couple,
Gotcha.
so that it's all about you. Everything is just, if you want to do an activity, if you don't want to, or you want to tweak something, it's all about you. And so it works. I think it works well, especially with the mindfulness aspect. So versus like a big group where you'd be, kind of like making new friends. And these are things that are also distracting you from being with yourself. A lot of the clients that come to the retreat are very like busy entrepreneur, celebrity people that just need to get away. And so it's nice for them to just like be with themselves.
Yeah. RG said that there's no phones either. I think that's something everybody should probably just do on their own. But
I think that he enlisted that rule for himself.
Oh,
really? Okay, that makes more sense. That makes
I
more
agree
sense.
with that.
RG, if you're listening.
It's nice, but I'm not, I maybe I'm too nice, but I kind of let people decide. But I would say something like that, like you should like put your phone down. My last client that was in last week said, it's the first time, and she didn't know how long, that she's like, I didn't look at my computer for the last 4 days. I wasn't checking my phone nonstop, and it felt really good to just let go of that.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah,
I definitely need to do that at some point here. When Hex hits like $1.50, I'll put the phone down for a few weeks.
There might be a few hexagons coming your way. Is it like a reach out to get a call and like some sort of introduction with you if someone was interested in going on one of these retreats? Cool.
Yeah, I know. I think on the website there's a specific place for retreat information, or you can always call or email, and either I can get on the phone, or my facilitator for the retreats, Abby, is amazing and can give you all kinds of information.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So
I'm going through this list itinerary for the retreat. It looks insane in a good way.
Yeah, I think it's the retreats are really great for looking at, as I said, kind of going across the spectrum of health. So everything from the physical part to spiritual, which I think is so important. We live in an environment that's like everybody has stress, and stress, like our tolerance to stress keeps going up, but it's creating like inflammation, illness inside of us. And so things like that to just reset, so important. So I have a question for both of you, since you're young and healthy. What are some of your what is your health regimen like?
You want to go first, exercise?
Sure. I can go first. I've always been fairly active. I played sports throughout junior high school. I'm from Canada. I ended up going to the United States on a golf scholarship. So that kind of threw me into just like this ecosystem of learning how to train hard, and like learn how to train for a whole bunch of different, goals. And then the school that I started taking with that ended up complementing that. I went to exercise science, basically kinesiology. So I learned a lot of the underlying mechanisms, and it made a lot of sense for me, the aspiring athlete at the time. So I've grown to, or I've come to have, I think, an extremely comprehensive understanding of kind of what I need to do just to maintain or to improve whichever specific area I want. And currently that looks like pretty sustainable workout patterns. So I like to lift. So resistance training I think is extremely important for every single individual. It has such great outcomes all across life, and especially leading into the later end of life. You need to get ahead of that ball there, build up some bone density and muscle mass. It's going to have huge multipliers, leading into the later years. So resistance training is probably my most focused. As I've gotten a little bit older, so I'm 31 now. Before, if you ever asked me about cardio, I would knock it. I would have some sort of joke about it, or I'd talk trash about it, or something like that. But I will admit it is also extremely important. So I like to get my cardio from activities of daily living. So I try to incorporate that through sports or some sort of leisure. I don't really program cardio in, but I am kind of aware that that will become more and more important as I age, to make sure that my cardiovascular health is in tip-top shape leading into some of these more I guess risky years, like as the occurrence starts to creep up in terms of any sort of like cardiovascular events. So I might like just kind of made a deal with myself that I know that will have to uptake, and hopefully I can get enough from sports. And if I don't, I use like some, I guess, like VO2. I try to measure VO2 using some pretty decent methods, I think. And as long as I compare apples to apples, like the same test, I can kind of see more or less where I'm at. It's a pretty good metric for cardiovascular health. But in terms of like activity levels, I'm pretty low on the scale. Like I think a lot of people, when they see someone who's quote unquote healthy, they're like, whoa, they must be in the gym this many days per week, or 6-7 days per week. And yeah, I really try to take an adherable, sustainable approach to it. So working out, and then when it comes to eating, I'm more of a macro counter, so I'm trying to stay in like a certain range when it comes to protein. Protein's really the most important one. I'm trying to hit enough protein. I find when I'm not really like being diligent about meal prepping, which I haven't for a long time now, I'm really just living, that protein is a tougher macronutrient to get. So that's probably the one that I try to focus on the most, and then make sure I'm somewhere close to my approximate calorie threshold for the day. So I think that's in the ballpark of like 2,400 calories a day for me. I think that sums up my take on it.
Very cool. I like that you do the VO2 measurements for cardiac health. I think that's great.
Yeah, it was when I did my undergrad and my master's, we did a lot of like actual VO2 measurement, where we actually measured like the inspired, expired gases and could actually look at data and values. Now I'm kind of just using more estimated measures, where I have either a time or a step count, or what's the big one that I do? The step one, there's a YMCA step one, and there's also a Cooper outdoor one. That's pretty good. Yeah.
Very cool. Do you do any type of like comprehensive blood work to measure like what's going on in your blood?
Also quite recently, in the last couple of years, I started getting blood work done. More specifically, like I was really only interested in like blood lipids.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably like the first one to go look at, or like maybe the biggest problem for most people. But that also included fasting glucose, and then a few other measures. Probably not super comprehensive, but I started doing labs once per year. I kind of fell off that in COVID because I left the United States where my doctor was, and now I'm back in Canada. I'm in this weird purgatory where I'm like I'm like a non-resident, so I kind of have health benefits here, but I've got health benefits in the States. So I'm in the process of transitioning back to Canada. And yeah, I like looking at the labs and checking out, especially lipids and glucose.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, like I know a lot about that stuff. Then after that, whatever my doctor's pointing to, and it's like, hey, take a look at this.
Cool.
Yeah.
We got to find you. Got to find you a new doctor to get you back on board.
I do need a new doctor.
Hopefully, an anti-aging one that will look at.
Oh yeah, I'll make sure.
Labs.
I'll make sure that they're anti-aging for sure. Yeah, I can't. I'd like to see like the list of everything that's on your labs or on somebody in the longevity fields labs. Be very, very cool.
Yeah, I think this is something that I emphasize a lot with my patients is, you know, that we have a different, you know, we have our chronological age, which is like, you know, I'm 37, next year I'm 38, then I'm 39. Then we have our biological age, which is your inside age. So, you know, I might be I could be 25 on the inside or I could be 75. So understanding this helps us to kind of like guide what we need to do with our health. You know, do we have accelerated aging or are we on point or are we like super healthy? So understanding what's going on internally is super important. And actually with technology, I'm so excited. I think about 6 months ago, I brought in a new test that actually gives you a physical age for your internal age. So it's looking at, you know, it's using artificial intelligence and looking at your epigenetics, which are like the genetics that you can actually modify, and something called methylation. So that's your body's ability to turn cells on and off, like cancer per se. So it's looking at your whole genome and it can actually give you an age. So for some of my patients, they like this because then they can, you know, okay, now we need to, you know, I need to reduce my age by, actually a good example is they say you want your inside age to be 7 years younger than your outside age or your chronological age. And that will reduce your chances of developing chronic disease by 50%.
Wow. So yeah, I heard you drop that number the other day.
Say that again?
I heard you drop that number the other day. That's huge. I'm guessing it's a relative drop, right? Of 50%.
Yeah.
As opposed to still. Yeah, that's unreal.
I think that's great. Yeah. Of note, since we were talking about Robert, his inside age is 60. So he's 15 years younger internally than his outside age. So yeah, good for him.
Yeah. Well, when you said 75, I just watched either a podcast or a stream he was on. I have a tough time, like looking at him and thinking 75. That's unbelievable. Good for him. And good for you. Well done. Yeah, well done.
And okay, so Ryan, I guess we have to hear your health regimen.
Well, you know, I just kind of wing it and hope for the best. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, a lot of the same stuff exercise said, right? You know, on a basic level, water intake, tracking calories, tracking macronutrients. Because people forget too, right? Just tracking calories, really, you're leaving so much more on the table for being effective, right? Someone could track 2,000 calories a day and be like, hey, I track my 2,000 calories a day, and that could be like all Skittles and wine, right? And it's like, well, like you said, the internal probably isn't a super fan of that, right? So those macros really help give a more accurate picture of not only how we feel and perform day to day, but so many other bodily functions, especially hormonally, right? And as it pertains to you know, your body composition, whether or not we're gaining or losing weight or staying in homeostasis. So macros are a big deal to me, although typically I'm more so on the calorie protein side. Like exercise said, if I'm in like a really high calorie count, I'm at like 3,300 a day right now. So kind of like in the fun zone, if you will. But yeah, aside from tracking calories and macros, I'm usually really active, but exercise made a really good point. You know, when COVID hit, I was going like right before COVID hit, I was someone who was adamantly at LA Fitness, like 7 days a week for an hour to 2 hours, give or take. And that was great. You know, my lifestyle allowed me to do so. And my life has changed quite a bit over the past 3 years, where now, you know, I'm working out maybe 6 days a week now, and most of it's at home for maybe 30 to 45 minutes. And lo and behold, nothing exploded. The main point being is, yes, like the gym is a great tool. I love the gym. It's not a dominating part of my lifestyle right now. And that was a way I got a lot of my time freedom back to invest in other areas, but my overall health didn't necessarily have to suffer for it. And my process didn't have to suffer for it. Do I want to be back in the gym in the future? Yeah, of course. But now I'm getting into running a lot and doing a lot of calisthenics and bodyweight movements, which are also great in a lot of ways too. So that's what I'm doing now. Although I would like to go to the gym, like the gym, more so like the way I used to. But for now, it's kind of on the back burner, which was kind of interesting change of pace for me. And I think a lot of people, like Exercise said, could really go through that process of understanding how important nutritional elements of this is, or some of the stuff that you're doing that nobody really wants to put the effort into learn or understand or see where they're at baseline, because the quick, sexy, easy thing to throw at the problem is, go be really active, go run a lot, go do this and go do that. And we're kind of nearing the point where most of the country can't even really do that, because typically if someone's very overweight, they can't even really start off with some heavy, weight training. It wouldn't even be really conducive, because potentially they can't even do those movements. So I don't do as much as I used to, but that's actually been a really positive change for me in that way. And other than that, I do get blood work every 2 years to keep a good line on where that sits. I don't track VO2 or anything crazy like that, although that is really cool. I just track resting heart rate, stuff like that, making sure it's in above average ranges. But other than that, I think that's about it. Nothing too crazy. I mean, I have my own health charts for myself and my clients, where it's kind of like almost like, where you have a blood panel. It's giving people insight. And sometimes it's not the best news initially, but that's kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid, because then moving forward is very exciting, right? You understand how to move forward. The person can become very excited in a positive frame of mind. So typically people never track weigh-ins, measurements, calorie counts, macros, and all that good stuff. But we operate on that wavelength with our bank accounts all the time. And it's like, guys, this took years or even maybe decades to build good relationships with this stuff. So the same thing applies here. But outside of that, I think that's about all I do right now. So nothing like too crazy, I would say. I would say about average, maybe a little above average for activity levels for now. If I'm in a weight loss phase, I'll kick it up, but nothing insane.
Nice.
Cool.
Man, I could send you, there's a few different tests that extremely minimal equipment. I think all you really need to do is track your heart rate at a couple different time points, plug it into an equation, it'll spit you out a number.
Dude, that'd be super interesting to see where that's at.
Right. It's not super accurate, obviously, but if you're measuring that to it, the same
a relative
thing.
Number,
yeah. If you're measuring it to itself over time, it's pretty darn good.
That's cool. Yeah, I've never even thought about measuring that, to be honest. It's funny. The clientele I usually operate with, that would never in a million years be part of the conversation the first month, or maybe even 12 months down the road, because we're talking 150 pounds of weight loss. So VO2 levels are not the highest priority level. So it hasn't even been on the forefront of my mind for myself. So that would be a very interesting metric. And honestly, I've only recently got into running, kind of tracking my times versus other professional runners to see how far off the mark I am. But VO2 would be a more specific thing to really look at and see outside of heart rate.
Yeah, and it's still considered the gold standard for cardiovascular health, I think, in terms of metrics, and it's a direct correlate with mortality. As VO2 goes up, mortality increases.
That's really cool.
Right, so correlation, but it's a strong correlation, and we can kind of point to the mechanisms that might be doing that might be causing that increased mortality. So yeah, it's a really good one, and one especially when I was younger and I had such a tough time actually putting on muscle and weight. I didn't care. It's cardio was killing my ability to put on weight and mass and size. So I was like, man, I'm never doing cardio. I'm eating as much as I can, and I'm lifting as heavy as I can. So that was my, I guess my mindset when I first started lifting. And now it's no, okay, cardiovascular health is, I would say for a long time I've said that resistance training is more important, but they're both important. I don't have to make a dichotomy like that. One is not necessarily more important than the other. They should both be highly prioritized, and that's a much more every time I end up coming to these conclusions. It's just a more moderate take. It's not a extreme. It's not a maxi. I'm not a resistance training maxi, right? Both are important. We can do both, and get the benefits from both.
Yes, balance, so many parts of our life.
Yeah. I mean, too, after what it has gone down the past 2 years, the act of going to a gym has become even less prevalent. And it's not that's a good thing per se, but what's easier for someone to pick up, improving the cardiovascular by going on a walk with all the layers of externalities people are dealing with these days that are very stressful, or sending them to a gym, which, let's be honest, consistency levels with working out typically blow with the wind. That's not a bad thing. It's just kind of a transitory thing by nature. You can't expect people to be on the level of professional bodybuilders and to dedicate that much time every week. Even a day or two a week is sometimes difficult, but walks can be fit in much more flexibly, and just in general, like being active from a cardiovascular, I feel like is the easier thing to pick up from just a body movement perspective too. You know, some of the tougher movements, even bodyweight movements, are becoming less accessible. So you get into a weight range that really supports it. Once again, not that I'm an anti-weight training zealot over here, but
Yeah.
I love it a ton. It just, I think people really get frustrated by, you know, that being such a strong mental barrier to starting this, because it's not a part of their process, and it really prevents them from getting started at all, which is tough. Or just totally stopping what they're doing because they're like perfect 3-day workout schedule gets debunked or stopped because, you know, something happens in their life. So yeah, balance as always, but I feel like what people are going to be shifting to is less working out with weights and stuff, I feel like, which is interesting to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, adherence is a massive problem in terms of weightlifting,
Dude,
resistance training.
it really is, man. And you can't hate on people for it. I mean, not everybody likes it. That's fair, you know?
Yeah.
95% of people I work with don't go to the gym. They're crushing the game.
Yeah.
Like literally, it's like, hey, do you enjoy the gym? No. Okay, well, I could tell this person to go to gym 5 times a week, and they're going to tell me to F off. It's like, am I really helping the situation at all and building a good relationship either? But
Those are
I'm
probably,
sure.
those are the same people that then come to me and say, I have no energy and I have brain fog.
Yeah.
I will say, as I see
Yeah.
people lose weight effectively and see a future that's much more positive, right? Because they're doing it on higher calorie counts in a way that's much more livable with the current cultural situation we have. As they lose weight, they do typically, right, like Nicole, like you said, typically feel better, have more energy, better sleep schedule, right? All those things do typically come up for at least a while, and by default, like in an organic shift, become more active on their own accord versus me being like a tyrant dictator and telling them to do so. You know, like the traditional healthcare system would kind of say. I mean, because what else can they say? Hey, don't be active. Well, that's not a good look. You know, like who's going to tell you to go eat healthy and be active, right? It's like, come on, dummies. Like we've been telling you for
Yeah.
50 years now. Obviously, it's not going to change, and they're not going to get a bad rap for saying otherwise. But it is interesting how it's almost like the inverse is the better start point, at least from a psychological. And I'm sure you see that too, Nicole. I'd be curious to hear your feedback on people's psychological adherence to stuff, and barriers or issues that you see sometimes with that. Like you said with Robert Kiyosaki, right? Where he was like potentially not adherent as much as you would have liked in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things when when I make recommendations or I suggest doing like this detox is people have to face their addictions with food, right?
Yeah.
So you might emotionally eat, you might eat as distraction. I mean, there's all different, people get addicted to sugar. It literally is changing chemicals in their brain. So there's definitely that aspect of the psychological aspect. And, even it can physiologically change, because if you're like, addicted to something or feeling stressed, that's going to bring up your cortisol levels and, mess up everything even more within your body with inflammation and glucose retention. And
yeah, 100%. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of interesting feedback on this detox, because I'm sure going from what they're eating currently to that is obviously a huge shift. And I'm sure the first week is likely the most difficult, I would have to imagine.
Yeah, the first few days, because your body's going through that detox process. I mean, one of the other things that you eliminate during the detox is caffeine, which most people drink their coffee every day, including myself. But I know the benefits of, once I kick the caffeine habit, I'm like, wow, like I feel more aligned. I'm like less on edge. It feels good. But you have to go through those caffeine withdrawals if it's something that you are doing every day, if you have that addiction to caffeine. The first few days you can feel a little more sluggish, but we try to also, like if they're local in Scottsdale, we try to help. We'll do like some IV vitamins to kind of push them through that detox phase. But then they start feeling good after, and then they start, the new levels of feeling good start manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, should we try and talk about a couple hot supplements before we wrap up here?
I know we had a comment in the chat about some sort of supplement.
Yeah, I
think
did see that. Let's pull that up. It was Rizzo. Somatropin. Sorry if you addressed this already, but what is your opinion about somatropin? So I believe this is growth hormone. I think I'm gonna actually have to type it into the Google machine though.
It is, yeah. Somatotropin, yeah.
All right. Somatropin, man-made growth. Okay, so synthetic or just like man-made growth hormone. Pretty broad question here. Growth hormone is naturally occurring in your body. So if you want to go get man-made growth hormone, like for a specific reason, that would be up to an MD. In the like health and fitness world, a lot of people talk about using growth hormone when it comes to muscle building and training and stuff like that. And all the data that we see when it's in terms of like resistance training effects, growth hormone is pretty lackluster. So it looks like it's a pretty good recovery agent, but again, unless there's some sort of dysfunction going on in the individual, you probably have just fine growth hormone that's leading to recovery. It's not super anabolic by nature, which I think like the health and fitness world or the exercise world always just automatically assumes. They're like, oh, HGH, and they just associate it with steroids immediately. So like growth hormone is not a bad thing. It has really, really important roles at times. So unless there's a really specific reason, I think someone's asking about this. Like I don't see any reason to like seek it out. Maybe from your perspective, Nicole, is somatropin or growth hormone something that you measure or talk about or think about when you are dealing with a client or a person?
Yeah. So when initial blood work, I do look at growth hormone because it is an important part of the whole hormone cascade. I do have a lot of people ask about it. I feel like it's a little bit older in the spectrum of like anti-aging or longevity. And there's been kind of mixed results now that it's been out for so long. Typically, it's given in peptide form. So it's like an injection that people might give to themselves like daily or weekly. Oftentimes when I look at people's hormones, even if like men have low testosterone, their growth hormone is still where it should be. So it's a very rare instance that I would prescribe this just because there are unknown potential side effects, around like cancer and things like that. I look at, if they are low, then yes, now we have reason. But if they aren't, then we're going to look at other causes or, what's their objective. They're looking at it in, I was reading a study, I think just recently, they're studying it with like Alzheimer's patients, can it slow that process? So I think they're still learning a lot about it. It's not my first choice as a go-to for anti-aging or, keeping you whatever the reason that you would want to go on it. I'm happy to answer more specific questions about it too.
Yeah, like you said, I do associate it as well with being like one of the like hot drugs in and around longevity back in the day, and I think it just didn't really live up to its hype or up to its name. Everyone thought, oh, HGH is going to be this miracle longevity drug, and it's like, I don't think we've quite found one specific miracle drug yet, guys. Like human growth hormones, I think a lot of it's honestly just in the name. Everyone's really, really hyped on it just because it's human growth hormone.
It can be pretty misleading. I mean,
right? So that,
if I had $1 for every time I heard someone talk about HGH.
yeah, and a lot of the old school bodybuilders use it, and there's often telltale signs if they are using it. There's like certain actual like anatomical structures that will be enlarged or like have like as a result of heavy growth hormone use.
Oh yeah, like excessive can end up something called acromegaly. I think that would be very excessive use of it. From my perspective, as far as like anti-aging, I have seen I think the best results using stem cells or some of the biologics. I do a very like specialized type of stem cell procedure, but I think, when we measure these like internal numbers, the internal age, I think I've seen the biggest reduction because what these cells are doing is like rejuvenating your cells. So as we age, our number of stem cell replication slows. That's why, if I fall and break my arm, and then my 4-year-old nephew falls and breaks his arm, he's going to heal way faster than me because he has these young, vibrant, endless stem cells. I don't have as many stem cells in my body. So that's why we go in and rejuvenate your stem cells to give you more of that youthful state and kind of reteach your stem cells how to communicate with other cells and optimize their function.
That's crazy. What's I don't know if you know this, like what's kind of like the expected result of doing that? Obviously it's probably be very different from person to person, age, genetics, all that stuff. But I guess what is like, what would you expect after doing some like a treatment like that on somebody?
So it can depend on what we're treating. So if I'm, sometimes I'll put the cells directly into a joint, for arthritis or a tear, or, we just do them as anti-aging. So they give them through an IV. So it's systemic. And people usually report they might have more energy. They might have more like mental clarity, or overall just feel like they'll just say, I feel better. I've actually had a couple cases where I had some kidney dysfunction and we used stem cells. I also use laser guided to help direct these cells. We've seen kidney improvements. We do it aesthetically. People do it for sexual enhancement, hair regeneration. It's pretty profound, like all the uses. Jeez. The thing is knowing what you're getting. That's always like the important part, because there's a lot of junk on the market, or sometimes even the doctor using the cells doesn't even realize that they have to be handled so delicately, and the cell count is important, and the way they're handled and preserved. And so there's lots of little nuances that are really important to know before you would get stem cells or a procedure done with stem cells. But They have pretty profound results.
So you can have someone screw the pooch on the stem cells that they give you, essentially.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Wow. I imagine, man, that sounds like a bad time. I don't even know what that would entail, especially if it's on some of the things you had mentioned. I won't rename them, but
I think a lot of times it's just if they don't see any change, sometimes that can be a result. A lot of times they aren't dangerous. I mean, I think rarely, unless it's something really botched. But a lot of times if they just aren't handled correctly, they would all they could all be dead by the time they're injected into your body. So, and it's pretty much the stem cells are. It's it's a costly procedure, so it's not something you're like, oh well, It's,
yeah, I imagine it was pricey.
Yeah,
man. Yeah, that's like such a tough thing to like police, because like, what is a person be like? Hey, see, these stem cells are dead. Like, I want my money back. You can't really, like, there's no way to do something like that. So yeah, that's interesting, man.
Yeah.
Shoot. I didn't know you guys were like could put them essentially anywhere and see some sort of beneficial effect from it.
Yeah. I personally, on myself, I've done it for rejuvenation a couple times. But I tore my hamstring pretty bad, and I injected into my hamstring, and I was able to go to spin class the next day, and I never would have guessed that I would be able to. And I was like, okay, well, after I get off the spin bike, once I cool down, I'm going to be in excruciating pain. I wasn't. I was like, it was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that field does sound very promising. Stem cells.
Yeah. I sit on the ethics committee of the American Academy of Stem Cell Physicians. So it's really
Cool.
It's awesome because we have meetings like every week. And so we're able to talk about case studies. So we're able to understand, what is this doctor doing that's working well for them? What can we incorporate in our practice? Or what can I share with this other person? Because we don't have these like mass studies yet that, that like pharmaceuticals usually support. It's always like kind of like all these little case studies, but they're realizing it more and more. I mean, FDA has actually approved some stem cell uses, which is exciting, but it's a slow moving area, but I think quite powerful.
Yeah, I would say too is like, I wonder what, like, because the exercise point is very promising, but I'd be curious to see like if price points that come down, like, is this something that you see having a reduced effect the more and more it's used, or is that an age thing where people are less responsive to it, or is it purely a genetics thing? I guess, is there any limitations to just, continuing to go at it, or does that hinder your body's ability to use its own natural stem cells? Bit of a broad question, but
yeah, I think it is very individualized. I think there are certain cases if somebody maybe has like a severe autoimmune disease, it might not be indicated. Certain cellular anemias, it might not be indicated. But it also depends where are you getting the stem cells from? So are you using your own stem cells? Like autologous stem cells, or are we getting cells from an umbilical cord? So that can also affect how the person responds to the treatment. I don't think there's like, if you use too many, your body's gonna, I guess I can't answer that because people can be excessive. I know they have, whole body treatments. I don't know long-term what that could potentially do because you are putting other cells in your body. But if we are like using your own cells, cleaning them up, activating them, I don't think that there's, I guess I can't say for sure, but that's a very good question. I think that's going to take some more long-term studies.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So yeah, it's very hard to gather and actually aggregate all that data to the point where you can like actually make a decision. But I think case studies are so valuable. It's just, yeah, it's so tough to, well, I mean, you're sitting on the board, but it's so tough to like push through that and like try to understand like what that means at scale and for like prescribing and then using and then it's just tough. It's just tough. And yeah, slow moving, and something that's exciting to see, like a hamstring repaired in like that kind of time scale. It's like, well,
that's
shit,
nuts.
we kind of got to sit on our hands here and wait just for some data to roll in before we can really do anything with it.
Yeah.
But it is, yeah, it's exciting to hear and see that there is, like, I've heard a few different stem cell stories like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Sorry,
go ahead, Nicole.
No, I'm looking at the chat box and I'm seeing like lots of questions. Am I allowed to just chime in?
Yeah.
I don't want to run out of time and then people don't have their questions yet. But I see one right here from Rizzo that asking about BPC 157. That's a great peptide for muscle recovery or injury. I do have experience with that, and I think that's one of the well-studied peptides and has a lot of health benefits. So I think that's a great one. I did see there was a few other peptide questions above. So the CJC and apormolin that I can never pronounce. I don't know if both of them or just the second one. A lot of them have been pulled from the market. So the FDA has really been cracking down on peptides, which is unfortunate because some are really, really great. I believe one or both of those has been pulled. So they do keep coming out with kind of like replacements. So it's one of those things you have to like keep up with your, whoever your health practitioner is to say, is there a replacement for it yet? Or is there a different compounding pharmacy where we can get it? I think there are a lot of really good, promising peptides out there. I know they've been one of the diabetic medications, GLP-1. So for people struggling with blood sugars, there's a really great peptide out now that's really helping with blood sugar management. It can help people with weight loss.
Yeah. So wow. Yeah, I saw some of these and I was going to comment on it and say, I don't even know some of these acronyms that you're throwing out here. So thank you for helping us out there.
Yeah.
I do think we should dedicate a little more time in another episode to some more supplements, because yeah, we are about to run out of time here. RG, the captain, is going to have an episode right behind us, chatting with the captain on Discourse Syndicate. So let's wrap up just talking about what you have going on, Nicole. You've got a YouTube channel that is up and coming. I think that's kind of what was talked about with Captain back in November. So there's going to be a link to Nicole's channel in the YouTube chat here. Everybody who's here, please make sure go subscribe to her, watch for any updates to come. I know she's got a podcast in the works that we're excited to see come out soon. And we are here to ask Nicole to be a consistent guest here on the Mindset of Fitness on Discourse Syndicate. So once a month, Nicole, if you will be so kind as to honor us with your knowledge and everything, we'd love to have you back. Yeah, on a monthly schedule.
I would love to. Thank you. Awesome.
I think everyone's going to be pumped on that. And yeah, so Rizzo, we didn't get to every single, I think, every single supplement that you mentioned there, but we will definitely dedicate some time to spending another segment on some supplements, because I think we only kind of dipped our toe in the water there.
Yeah, our last one on
I would love to be able to. Oops, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just saying the last episode we had on supplements was also like a very popular one. People, as you can imagine, had a lot of questions, and it was a good time to kind of just talk with everybody. So I'm sure with you being here now, it'll be even more insane. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with what we're already seeing here, I haven't even heard of half of this stuff. So.
Yeah, and I think it's great if there is something that, you know, we come across that I'm not familiar with. I'm happy to research it and come back the next time with some knowledge and be able to kind of give some feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what we do too when we hear a obscure supplement that's supposed to increase muscle mass or whatever the claim is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happens.
A lot of nonsense out there. So you'll be able to help back us up too when there's some nonsense being thrown around.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to throw down the hammer on people, because there's a lot of nonsense in the crypto space. Mm-hmm. I'll leave it to that.
Alrighty.
There's a lot, you know, going in regards to supplements. There is a lot of junk on the market, and you know, I've actually gotten into that space. So I'm actually working on production with a lab to produce some of my own supplements, just because, you know, I say, like, if we're going to be recommending these things to people, like, I want to ensure that it's like good products, that it's, you know, coming from a good lab, it's an appropriate concentration, and so that you're benefiting from it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool.
Yes. Oh. And I have to give one quick shout out to one of these other Hexicans, Give Me Liberty.
Okay.
He actually just finished the detox and lost 16 pounds, and his cholesterol levels dropped, I think, like 80 points.
Nice.
So crazy health improvements. I'm very proud of him.
Wow, very nice. Big stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
cool.
That's huge. Congrats.
Well, I think that is going to be the end for us today then. Nicole, welcome. Thank you for coming on, and we look forward to having you back on. I'm sure lots of these guys do as well.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a pleasure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anything else from you, Ryan? Anything else?
No, I'm super hyped to have you on, and yeah, I think we're going to be able to provide some serious value to the Hex audience here, especially as Hex grows exponentially. Yeah, I think this is going to be a really cool space to get involved with in the health and wellness side of things. And it really does need a lot of help. It needs guidance, but not just like fun guidance, but like really solid guidance that's actually based on things that are going to point people in the right direction. So I think we got the right people here for it, and I'm really excited to have you out. I really appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. As per usual, next Monday, you'll see us again right here.
Oh boy, here it comes.
At all the times, 6 p.m. Pacific, which turns out Pacific is also the same time as Arizona time, 7 p.m. Mountain,
Dude, Arizona's doing everybody dirty in the time
8
zone.
p.m. Central. We will see you then. Watch for our tweet to go out. Try and get a comment on it if you want a specific question answered. And we'll see you then.
Awesome. See you
Bye.
guys then.